We've reported this year on allegations of sexual harassment against powerful people from Hollywood to Capitol Hill to the media. But a new investigation by the New York Times gives voice to people in blue-collar jobs. The article explores decades of sexual misconduct allegations at two Ford auto plants in Chicago.
The day that really sent me over the edge, I was loading a robot, and he walked into the same cell that I'm in and grabs my behind. I turned around to him and I said, "Keep your hands to yourself. As I've told you plenty of times before, I'm not interested."
CBS News contributor Jodi Kantor is a New York Times reporter. Her colleagues broke the story about harassment at Ford after talking to more than 100 current and former employees and industry experts. She has reported extensively on several harassment allegations, including those against Harvey Weinstein. Jodi joins us once again at the table. And Jodi, I have to say, you caught my eye a couple days ago with this tweet. If you've read our stories about harassment among the famous and elite, please promise me you'll also read this shattering tale set on Ford factory floors. And shattering is a word. What these women endured. Please give us a sense of what these women put up with for years.
This is some of the most flagrant behavior we've heard about in all of our investigation this year. My colleagues Susan Chira and Katrin Einhorn spoke to many women who from the very first day of work encountered harassment. Fresh meat was yelled out as they entered the factory, almost a signal of what to come. They were groped, they were propositioned, and work was used as leverage. One woman basically had to sleep with her supervisor, she says, in order to get the timetable she needed to make daycare arrangements.
No, they were offered $5 for oral sex and told you should take that as a compliment. One woman's called peanut butter legs. What does that mean? Because it's the color of your legs, the kind of legs you like to spread. I just thought this was so egregious and so despicable, what these women put up with.
One woman was bitten on the butt.
Yes,
I mean, and also the other significant thing about these findings is that they stretch across 25 years.
Yeah.
And what we've tried to do in our reporting this year is not only talk about the harassment, but talk about the systems that enable it. And part of what's really striking about this case is that the union basically failed to address these complaints. The union became very divided in its mission because it seemed, according to the women, more concerned with protecting male workers who were accused of harassment than really taking up the women's cause. And the EEOC got involved. That's the federal agency that is supposed to combat sexual harassment. Ford knew what was happening, instituted new training that faded away. So as we head into 2018, what I think we're all thinking about is how do we actually change the American workplace? Are we going to be sitting here this time next year having the exact same conversations, or is there some sort of path forward?
As you talk about, the institutions that are around this, we have heard from Ford's CEO Jim Hackett, who issued a letter to employees yesterday saying it was gut-wrenching to read the New York Times and saying this: there is absolutely no room for harassment at Ford Motor Company. There will be no retaliation against anyone who speaks up. But what was there about prevention?
Prevention and also accountability, right? That was a very powerful letter from the CEO. That was Ford's strongest signal to date. Many of these women, including the woman you showed at the beginning, Suzette, had talked about how for years she wanted an apology from Ford. Well, she finally got a powerful one yesterday in the form of this letter that was sent to all employees. What we do not know, however, is what the accountability is for this happening, because the sad truth that many people feel is that unless somebody can be fired for sexual harassment or face serious job consequences, nothing really changes.
The United Automobile Workers Union, Jodi, which is one of the most powerful unions in the country still, has said it has a zero-tolerance policy for sexual harassment. But as you point out in the article, they're obliged to protect both the accuser and the accused.
And in this case, one of the union officials who was supposed to be helping the women was actually accused of sexual harassment himself.
Yeah, I love that Ford's response is they view the harassment as episodic, not systemic. I was very surprised based on what you all laid out in this article, that was their response.
Yes, and the situation inside the factories that Susan and Katrin reported was more complicated. There were people who tried to help the women. There were men who stood up for the women. So it's not that it was a one-dimensional portrait, but what they came away with was this stubborn and pervasive sense that this was the culture at these factories and that it was incredibly hard to change.
It's such an important article that you did, and I love the women saying, you know, there's been so much about Me Too, and they're saying, what about us? And you all certainly addressed that. It is a must-read, Jodi. It is a must-read.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jodi.
Thank you.